Your boss is gonna want to talk to you, man.
Oh, turn off the video. All right. Hey, I'm not driving anymore. Look at that.
I think that's a good idea, yeah.
We're not making anyone crash, are we?
No.
No? Okay.
Trying to
we'll be
avoid
fine.
that.
Preferable.
Conversation.
Hello, Hannah.
Hello.
Hear us? And we are ready if you are.
Are we good to go? Yep. Right, let's get started. Call to order the meeting.
Let's call to order.
We do the attendance roll call.
Call. Roll call. Commissioner
Majumdar. Here.
Commissioner Sabordine. Commissioner Sam Doyle. Commissioner Carissa Richards.
She'll be late. She's on her way.
Chair Page.
Here.
Commissioner Benita Francisco.
Here.
Commissioner Hannah Meyer.
Attending remotely via teleconference.
Also have with us this evening our council liaison.
They're here. Nice to see you.
We also have our, another administrative assistant, Lan Wynn, and myself, Bernadette Taylor Moses.
Okay. Next on the agenda, the land acknowledgement.
Okay, land. Within Snohomish County, we acknowledge the original inhabitants of this area, the Snohomish people and their successors, the Tulalip tribes. Since time immemorial, they have hunted, fished, gathered, and taken care of these lands. We respect their sovereignty, their right to self-determination, and honor their sacred spiritual connection with the land and water. We strive to be honest about our past mistakes and bring about a future that includes their people's stories and voices to form a more just and equitable society. Labor, we must acknowledge, excuse me, that much of what we know of this country today, including its culture, economic growth, and development throughout history and across time, has been made possible by the labor of enslaved Africans and their ascendants who suffered the horror of transatlantic trafficking of their people, chattel slavery, and Jim Crow. We are indebted to their labor and their sacrifice, and we must acknowledge the tremors of that violence throughout the generations and the resulting impact that can still be felt and witnessed today.
Thank you, William. For the approval of the February 15th meeting minutes, can I have a motion for the approval of the meeting minutes of last one?
To approve the minutes for the February meeting.
Someone second it? I second it.
Okay, it's been, the minutes have been
Motion and approved.
Motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Okay,
Is it better for me to unmute for that, or should I type it? I don't know what the best option is when I'm remote.
Mute
Okay.
or?
You just raise your hand.
Okay.
all right, next, public comments. Don't see anyone. We can move on. On the agenda is the city council liaison report.
All right. Well, nice to be back this month. I was sorry to miss everyone last month, but did have an opportunity to do some good things down in Olympia, both generally kind of in support of the city and meeting with our representatives and talking to them about our priorities, particularly when it comes to Main Street Phase 2, which we are all very excited about trying to get over the finish line in the near future. But one of the other things that we got to do while we were down there was they had various learning sessions that were available to the council members who were down there, because I guess I should explain what it was. So the Association for Washington Cities is essentially the collective association of representatives from cities across Washington state. And so they had learnings tailored to folks who serve in municipal government, both elected leaders as well as folks who work directly for the cities. And so one of the sessions that they had was specifically tailored around equity. And so they had the equity manager from Olympia come, along with one of their council members, come and talk about some of the work that they have started to do in order to think about their work a little bit more intentionally when it comes to equity. And so I've got some good resources that I will share out with this group that I printed, and I'll send it to you. I'll send all the information electronically as well, so everybody has it. But I do, for folks who are here in the room, I did print out the equity framework that Olympia has started to utilize as part of their project planning process. And I think when we start thinking about, I think one of the good conversations that Chair Page and I had is, conversations that you as a commission have had about, there's equity reaches across everything or could potentially touch all of the work that we do, and maybe should touch all of the work that we do as a city. And the commissioners in this group can't be everywhere all of the time. So how are we starting to think about tools and processes and things to help folks, whether that is us council members, whether that is staff members, how are we, potentially helping them to have the tools to be able to think in a more equitable way about the decisions and the projects that we're making. Hello. And so we're talking about, so I got to go to a really cool session about equity, and so we're talking a little bit about that. And so I guess I just wanted to plant the seed tonight that that's a thing, and would love to get thoughts from this group at some point in the future, whether this feels like a tool that we think could be helpful or built upon, or crafted in a way that could potentially support some of the work that we're looking at. So I think particularly as we look ahead, I'm looking at our agenda for tomorrow night. We have a work session, the council does, and one of the things that we're discussing is ARPA funds, right? And I think that's an area where equity could play a really important role in those conversations, right? And we have the opportunity to be really intentional and impactful in how we allocate those funds. And so I think, I know there's a lot of ongoing conversations, and maybe this is something that I know we're going to talk about, I think, the RFP and kind of that, but perhaps that this is something to put on hold until we have that person identified and they kind of help us with looking at something like that. But I figured I'd at least share kind of what tools they are using, have found some success in, have really kind of utilized to help them think a little bit differently about their project planning. And that way, if it feels helpful, great, and if it doesn't feel helpful, that is okay as well. But thought that was really helpful. I mean, a couple of other things that are probably worth noting for this group, just to make sure that everybody kind of is apprised of what's going on at the council. A big part of this last month has been going through the city manager hiring process. So we did extend an offer and have acceptance of an offer for a new city manager, Jeff Knighton. He is starting, I don't have that date in front of me, April, he's starting in April, yeah. And he is coming to us, with city manager experience, from another community here in the Puget Sound area, so we're really excited about that. And, you know, I absolutely would encourage us to think about when to invite him to his first, you know, meeting here. I'm sure he will have a lot of opportunity to kind of sit down and meet folks, and I know that, I think, Rohit, you were the one, right, involved with the hiring, process. So, thank you for that. I really appreciate it, and I think the council as a whole really appreciated all of the community members, and commissioners who participated in that process, and that was a really important part of our discussion as we were taking a look at candidates, was the feedback that we got from those groups. Thank you for that. Other stuff, I think, kind of in thinking about just looking at things more equitably, I thought we made kind of a good, we looked at our last meeting, we looked at a resolution for a recreation program scholarship. And so that was something where we looked at, we have some additional funds over the next couple of years that we are using to expand what has been a fairly limited program in the past. So it used to be up to $50 a year for the next couple of years. At least we have funding for up to $250 a year for individuals. And one of the things that we did was initially when it came before us, it was limited to, it's income-based, but it was limited to children and or folks that had qualified for disability assistance and or were seniors. We just opened it up we took away that somebody has to be disabled in order to receive it as long as they're meeting those income qualifications, with the goal of really recognizing that recreation programs have value to community members and trying to allow more access to folks who that is outside of their reach financially, was a benefit to all of us. So I thought that was a really good opportunity for us to think a little bit differently as a council, and we were able to make that change from the DEIC and got it approved. And so I thought that was a really exciting kind of way of us maybe just starting to think about these things a little bit more inclusively. And so I think that was really neat. And then again, upcoming stuff that I think probably is just important for all of you to be aware of. We are going to be talking again tomorrow night about our long-term communication strategy. So we have hired somebody to focus on communication. I don't know a lot about that hire, but we're going to be talking about the work that they're going to be doing tomorrow night, and ensuring that there's an opportunity for input. So if you have time to take a look at that agenda and have thoughts, I would encourage you to share them. I think most of you know, but I will just say it just for everyone, including those that may be listening, that you don't have to be at the meeting to provide public comment. You can send an email by 4 p.m. tomorrow to be included in public comment for the meeting. And so would encourage you, if you have thoughts there, to share those. And then we are also, again, talking about those ARPA funds, so the American Rescue Plan Act funds, which is, we have several $1 million that we need to allocate here by, you know, in the next year and a half or so. And so those are ongoing conversations that we've had lots of conversation around, and we've got some presentations coming from staff tomorrow that I'm excited to see. And again, though, I think there's opportunity for community input, and I think opportunity to think about diversity, equity, and inclusion as we think about how those funds are spent. So I think that's all I have on my radar at the moment, but happy if anybody has questions or would be helpful to.
Quick question, the long-term communication strategy, is that for the council or is that for the commission?
No, it's for the city, actually. It could potentially touch both the commission and the council. So we had filled a community, so this was, we had moved, I think Ricky had been promoted to the communications manager role. And so, let's see. Says, because this is a new position, new chapter in the city's history, it's important for council members as well as the incoming city manager to have a chance to provide input and feedback on the road ahead. So I think it's just maybe an opportunity to, I guess, continue to think about how we're communicating as a city. And so I don't know a lot more than that, to be honest. But I do think thinking through, I think we've made a lot of strides in communication in recent years, and I think continuing how we do that in a way that helps us reach, you know, the members of our community effectively. An important part of that conversation. That's what I
So I'm just to kind of like extend that a little bit. So I'm guessing that there really are no set parameters established for what this new strategy is going to look like yet. That is what is being developed.
I think there's some framework. I mean, a job description was created as part of that transition. So I don't think we are starting from a place of like greenfield, don't know, like but I do think that there is opportunity to provide input to make sure that we are continuing to head in the right direction.
You know, the reason why I asked that is because if you all remember, those are, I guess you and I, Hannah, you know, when we first started, we had a lot of conversation, you know, especially those that were more social media savvy than I am, as to various platforms that could be used, you know, from our commission, other commissions, the city, you know, to be able to, you know, amplify the things that we're trying to do. And, you know, and we were like, well, you can't do that, you can't do that, we can't do that, we can't do that, or whatever. So, you know, maybe this is opportunity, at the very least, to get that conversation out there to say, well, what are other parameters now? Are they changing? Can, you know, A, B, C, D, Instagram? I know Ricky has brought up those things too, you know, various, you know, forms that are out there to reach, you know, a whole group of individuals. So that's why I'm asking that question.
Just to add on to that, I think even in the last 1 year, especially after Ricky came on board, I think I've seen a lot more of the communication, whether it's Facebook messages, whether it's Instagram, even LinkedIn, which, you know, not a lot of people do, so LinkedIn. So I think that's great, but I'll just be curious to see how, you know, this new strategy or this person will handle things differently from what the cities already, like, I feel like they've already, like, the cities are doing a lot, so what will be different, and how do we draw the line between let's provide information versus let's provide too much information where people are like, oh, I don't want to hear about what's happening. So I think I'm just curious to see how that.
You ever run into somebody that thinks we're communicating too much? I haven't found those folks yet, even when I think maybe we are.
I myself.
Okay.
Yes. So, yeah.
Okay, so, I like,
but
yeah,
I'm just one of how many of 1,000, so.
No, I mean, usually we hear when folks are like, how did we not know about this? And we're like, well, we tried these 5 different ways to share, but I think to that point, so can I go back to what you said, so kind of what can we do and what are the parameters? In that regard, we're talking about commissioners, correct? Or are we
Well, I
talking?
know for us, that was, you know, I think that, yes, I'll just say yes. The short answer to that is yes. You know, my usage of social media is extremely limited, but I know there's another world out there of individuals that are doing things, and I'm hoping that that conversation is going to be opportunity for either you folks or whoever knows that they're using different platforms that aren't accessible can ask the question through email or by voice or whatever, to say, well, can you do this too? Can you do this too? Can you do this too? You know, and just so that all those opportunities are there, you know, to reach people that aren't reachable right now.
Yeah.
You know.
Are there places that anyone has thoughts on that we are not currently communicating that you think maybe we should be?
I think the question was more so autonomy of social media, and so being able to have a DEI-specific account, right? So if somebody doesn't necessarily want to know about all of the city's posts for all the different areas, maybe they just want to be a part of Parks and Rec, or they just want to be a part of this, you know, what's happening with DEI, they can specifically follow that. And then that way they also have a direct line of communication. So instead of having to go to the website to look up an email address after 17 clicks to see, oh, who do I contact, you just DM the Instagram account and you have a person on the other side of that answering questions. We were told that is not a possibility back at the start of our, and that any we were free to give what we wanted to be posted, but it had to go through certain channels to be posted. And while I fully understand that, it removed our ability to kind of be on the fly about things. Say, oh, you know what, this would be a great thing to post. Well, if they need 4 days in advance to be able to have that ready to go, or it takes 3 extra steps before it can get posted rather than me or somebody within the commission just directly posting it, it created a lot of roadblocks.
Ask a question. So when we talk about posting through social media, and hear you on the question about a DEI specific account, and I'm not sure the kind of background or reasoning there. I guess if that still didn't seem like that was a path forward from the city, is the question then, is that something you could do on your own through your, I guess, or you're really looking to have a Mountlake Terrace branded diversity, equity, and inclusion? So not the second piece. We're not talking about personal posting of information. You're talking, and the commission would run that? A staff member would run, who would be responsible for that in your?
Ideally, somebody from within the commission, that it is less of a middleman situation and more of a direct information line.
I mean, the city could be involved, but definitely the commission. Just so, again, like Sabara said, there's no middle person.
I'm happy to bring it, we're having the conversation, so I'm happy to share that and include that as kind of an ideal ask of how we'd like to think about community.
Position sits underneath Ricky.
This is Ricky.
This is
Ricky is leading the communication strategy.
I thought it was Ricky and someone. She got.
But yeah, that's what I kind of thought. Yes, that's kind of.
And will probably be an umbrella as it develops.
Yes, that is the intention, yes.
So there is a new communications position that is not Ricky.
Ricky was the communications specialist. Ricky has moved into the communications manager role.
There is a new specialist.
There is a budgeted specialist.
Got it. So that role would sit underneath Ricky.
And I think it's important, now, because the MLC Police has a page, correct? Okay, so
They don't, a social media page?
Yeah.
I don't believe they do.
I think the only, Parks and Rec has their own,
Okay.
but I think that is the only one.
You know, and I'm just gonna throw this out there. I hope that the immediate response isn't, A, we've never done this before, B, no one else has one. And if it is, someone says, so what? Why not? You know, because that's a new position, right? Didn't have that before. So I think we just gotta, I hope y'all are mindful of that, okay, when that gets thrown out there.
I can be
Now, when I say
mindful.
y'all, I'm not talking about you, I didn't say you, I said y'all, you know, all right? You all, you know? And switching gears, if there's like someone, I just got a question, you were talking about the Olympia group there.
Yeah.
Was you able to get any type of history, like how long have they been, you know, at this, that sort of thing? Is it new for them, you know, just, you know, that sort of thing?
It is fairly new for them. They've kind of, it's been an iterative process for them, I think, where they had originally, you know, been doing some of this work, but using a more like structured framework is a newer process for them.
Mm-hmm. So they have an equity manager. Did they start with the manager, or did they start with a commission, or did they come together, or do they have a commission?
That is a good, they do have some sort of commission,
Mhm.
if I'm recalling correctly. I think I am. And I do think that the manager is newer than
Okay,
that. So
okay,
yeah, I
okay.
think that is a newer role for them
Okay,
as
okay.
a city.
And I ask that because, again, we talked about this before, so I'm not gonna dwell on it. A lot of the groups that I talked to that has some type of manager that has evolved from the commission. You know, there are some that I've met back in October of 20, that's where they started, and they were like, holy mackerel, I don't believe it's just me, you know, but a lot more have come from a commission, which grew into a position, like Linwood, for instance. Okay. All right.
And this is a full-time equity manager.
Anything else?
Not unless anything else would be helpful.
Right. Next, we have the 911 brochure, Sergeant Matt Porter.
Hi, good evening.
Hello, Matt.
Hello.
Hope you guys can see me okay. I'm calling from the ferry line in Kingston.
We can hear you. We can hear you.
So we didn't really talk about what you wanted me to talk about. You want me to just give you an overview of kind of how the brochure came to be and the role that the DEIC played in it?
Well, I'd like you to introduce us to the brochure, you know,
Okay.
because it gives us something to be able to share and talk about.
Yep, let's do that.
That looks great.
So
I said it looks
I'm
great.
well, I hope so. That is all Ricky's doing in partnership with the EOC, the Snohomish County EOC. So those guys are fantastic. So I guess just I guess for historical perspective, I've been casually listening to the DEIC meetings for pretty much since the inception, and I was recently been with Mountlake Terrace, the police department, for 15 years, primarily in operations, and then was recently promoted into an administrative sergeant's position where the cops and clergy program fell under my purview, and Sergeant King was great in kind of mentoring me into running that show. And at a meeting, at one of the cops and clergy meetings, I had a friend of ours from the meditation center approach me after the meeting, and she had a very kind of scared look on her face, and she said, "Oh, I've got a question about one of our other meditation centers is worried about burglaries, and they think the building was burglarized, and they didn't want to call, and they called me." And I said, "Well, I know a policeman, and I'll ask him the next time I see him." And I thought, and we talked about it, and ultimately she wanted to know, when can she call 911? And she wanted to tell her friend. And I said, well, if somebody's burglarizing your house, that's obviously a great time to call 911. Then it occurred to me that there was a nexus between a couple of things. And one of them, as I listened particularly to William talking about wanting to have something that the DEIC could almost hold in its hand in a project to be able to hold in your hand. I thought, well, this might be an opportunity, because here's something that I think aligns with the DEIC mission, which is about accessing and connecting not just city resources, but our community stakeholders who don't have access to city resources or don't know how to use them. So I had this idea about creating a brochure on calling 911 and or when to call 911. And then Rohit and I had a conversation. Rohit, I don't even remember how that conversation got started, but ultimately ended up in my office, and we chopped it up for a good hour and a half about what this would look like. Took all of those ideas. I took those ideas to Ricky, who was immensely helpful. This is a woman of many talents, and she gave me access to her network to include her partners at the EOC for Snohomish County. Long story longer, we were able to customize a brochure that had all of the information that we wanted to on it, and attached, and this was, which I thought was really kind of the genius move on Ricky's part, is we put a QR code on that brochure that links anybody to the website, to a specific website, a city website. And then what Ricky did was she took the content of the brochure and put it on our website. Now that in and of itself isn't anything special, except the city website has a Google Translate function on it that automatically translates the brochure into 180 languages with a drop-down menu. So essentially, we were able to translate the content of the brochure and how to call 911 to every language that at least Google is aware of. We also printed the brochure in Spanish and about 8 other languages that the school district had as the most frequently spoken languages in the Edmonds School District. So there's little pamphlets. It's not the full 3-fold brochure, but little pamphlets to that effect. Got that printed out about 2 weeks ago. So that project took about 3 months from inception to creation, and got it printed 3 months ago. And then I think, William, you might be able to speak to some of your ideas or our ideas. We talked at the last Cops and Clergy about, and I love this question from William, which was, boy, this looks great, so what? I was like, my man, that is exactly the right question. I love that question. And so the question, so what, from my standpoint is I have access to certain resources, including Officer Kyle O'Hagan, who is our community outreach officer. And because I'm assigned to the office and of course have access to all the patrol officers, right, we have an amount of reach where we can access frequent 911 callers, we can access community members as we interact with them. But I think the real opportunity for us is to partner with the DEIC to get this really critical information in the hands of community stakeholders who otherwise don't feel comfortable talking to the police, interacting with the police, or who we just wouldn't have an interaction with on a daily basis via community groups, our community outreach events, through the churches. It's one of the ways that we're accessing them through the Cops and Clergy. So I guess that's whether we solve this problem tonight or not, I think I'm really looking for some help. I need some help. I have this amazing resource that frankly you inspired, that I need to get in the hands of the people that can use it.
Okay, thank you, Sergeant Porter. And I'm going to open it up to the group. I really appreciate, the energy you and Rohit put into this, and Ricky, getting this to, this hard copy. And like he says, now the question is, how does this become accessible to everyone else, or as many people as possible? Because obviously, going door to door isn't something that's going to happen. So what can we do? How can we do it? It is online. And so I open it up for any questions, suggestions, ideas on, if you had this and you had to get it to others, how would you do it?
Mail at school.
Sorry?
Mail at school, having students take it home to their families. And at the library story time and the doctor's offices. We have one here. And the public buildings, the police department, the post office, the pavilion.
Anything else?
So is there some sort of comparison of who shows up to Cops and Clergy versus what churches and places of worship we have within the city?
I'll let Sergeant Porter answer that, because that's a good question.
Generally, we have some of the same, we'll call them repeat members, that I would say represent 6 or 8 different separate churches, plus the fire department's chaplains. They're very consistent supporters. And then the community resource paramedics from the fire district, they show up very frequently. And then we've had William and Rohit have stopped in a few times. I don't know what the exact number of churches is in the city. My contact list for Cops and Clergy, I believe, has 24 people on it, but I couldn't say specifically. Some of them, the contact information, I don't have updated. The emails bounce back to me and it says, hey, your email's been received and someone will be in touch. So I don't know what that means on the organizational end. I don't know if that's quite the answer you're looking for. I don't know the number of how many people are, the percentage of churches in the city to participants in the meetings.
I can say, I know that from the times that I've gone, I haven't seen, and correct me if I'm wrong, any representations from mosque, for instance. You know, any synagogues, you know, when we're talking about religious groups that I can think of off the top of my head.
But just to clarify, those invitations went out to those places.
Yeah, I know. I'm just saying
Yes,
in
for sure.
terms of who's actually showing up though, you know. So those are groups that are missing from this opportunity.
Yeah, the invitation is definitely going out, and now it's certainly not the most aggressive marketing campaign of all time. It's a fairly passive marketing campaign. From a standpoint of I send an email or two out, advising people when the next meeting is, and then I send out another email. Here's the agenda, and then usually one reminder just before the meeting.
Miss where or how other languages are available?
I can't hear you.
Did I miss where or how other languages are, like, is this available?
What he said is that when you scan the QR code, it will bring you to the website, and then there's a Google drop down for any of 180 something languages.
No physical copies will be printed in it.
No, he said that there were,
I think
what,
it's nine languages.
9 other languages.
Spanish and then all the other admin school district languages.
Has Ricky thrown out any suggestions on, introducing this online or, you know, I don't think I've seen it on, not that I look at it as often as I used to, the MLT News. Do they know that this has been created?
I don't know if the MLT News knows if it's been created or not. Ricky and I talked, I think it was last week, about what a social media campaign would look like, and she and I discussed a slow trickle. We have enough content right now that my expectation is that you'll start to see some information about it slowly trickle in. We don't want to put up 7 posts about this and then not see anything else. So the idea is that it becomes a quarterly post, if not more, and that there's an initial campaign to kind of get the word out. I don't know if we'll see it in the next city happenings. She generally produces that several months in advance, but I do imagine we'll see it in not the one that's currently being published, but the next one. But frankly, some of that the public information officer media interaction is just outside my not only my area of expertise but my purview.
Any other questions, comments, ideas?
As far as the long game is concerned, we have so many outdoor events. Summertime with, what was it called, something night out?
National
Night Out, and, Tour de Terrace, and I think there was one other one that we did. Place to be able to have these, show that we have them in various languages.
Oh, it's a trunk or treat.
Yeah, these are all opportunities where my expectation is that my officers that are working those nights will have these with them and are specifically interacting with people they don't see. I mean, are not our regular customers. That's our opportunity to interact with folks who aren't calling 911 or don't know how. So it would, I guess, you know, my vision is it's fantastic if both of us are participating in National Night Out and both of us are using this as a way to connect with the community. Like we have this shared avenue of connection. I think that'd be really awesome.
I think I missed it somewhere, but was there some sort of communication towards, you know, the police or something, that people are not calling 911 because they don't know when to, as opposed to other reasons?
Yeah, that was the inspiration for this. I at one point, I think it was actually in one of your meetings where it had come up where somebody had made an offhand comment about my family doesn't even know when to call 911, and I think it was because they were a first generation American family and they just didn't know their interactions with I'm vaguely remembering this, but their interactions with the police in their home country was extraordinarily negative, and the last thing they wanted to do was have the police come to their house. And I thought, well, that's crazy. This is America, where police are reasonable people. Of course, my context being the skin that I occupy, and I like to think I'm a reasonable person. I thought, I don't know about that, and I put it off until I had this second interaction with this lady from the meditation center at the cops and clergy meeting, and I'm a slow learner. And finally, this interaction with this really nice lady was like, oh, I see what this is about. And I'm in a position, I was not then, but I am in a position now to do something about it, frankly. So I did.
And I'll give like an example, to this whole idea of people not realizing that they can call 911. The lady across the street from me, when we was having the ice storms, she had a water main outside her property that, as you all know, I live on top of the hill, that had exploded. And water was going all over the place, and everybody was sliding into my yard, their yard, everybody. And she was like, well, and I think she tried to get a hold of the city, couldn't get a hold of the city. And so I said, call 911. I can call 911. Yeah, I think you probably want to call 911 because we've got an emergency here. And she called 911, and they told her, you did the right thing. And probably within like 15 minutes, there were like 3 trucks, the manager, the assistant manager, because I live on top of a hill, and it was like really bad. And they came and they stayed until they fixed it. And she was like, wow, I never would have thought. And plus her English was kind of limited, which is probably why City Hall didn't respond, because sometimes we have a hard time understanding her, and so it worked out. That was just an example how, people would not think to call 911 for something like that. She's thinking, I got to get a hold of the water department, which you couldn't get, et cetera, et cetera. So, any other questions, comments? Well, Sergeant, thanks for all this work, both you, Rohit, Ricky. Really appreciate this, and I like the idea of filtering out so that it doesn't get overwhelmed and then forgotten about. But as we come up with ideas, we'll share it with you and Ricky, and and likewise, I'm sure, and just appreciate the fact that you listen to our meetings and you can pick up something, because that's all that we're hoping for, is that something will bounce off of us and stick on to something in the city. And this is an indication that people do listen to our meetings, even if no one shows up there, they go back and listen to. And
Yep.
And so it's important that we can generate ideas and we can talk about things that's important to the city from a DEI perspective, because it what got created. We don't know when that meeting was, but he heard something at our meeting. I think that's huge.
Yeah, it was meaningful to me, and it's even more meaningful that we took an idea that you and I and the group, and we took an idea and we made something out of it. That, hey, listen, if this affects one person in a positive way, it was worth the money and the time to do it. And that's all I really want to do. I think I do truly believe that I can change the world, and maybe not the whole world, but for one person, their whole world. And I think this is a way to do it. And I appreciate the inspiration and the time. And you will be getting a call. And hopefully all of you will be getting a call from me or through our contacts, because we are going to need help getting this out into the community. And I expect that help, and I look forward to it.
All right. Appreciate it. Appreciate the time. Thanks, man. Have a safe trip home.
Thank you, Sergeant Porter. And we
Thank
look
you.
forward to the next steps in this. All right, moving on to the next topic in our agenda, proclamations for 2023.
Any suggestions or events coming up? The idea of, maybe not a proclamation or a proclamation attached to some events coming up, which is a great idea. Any ideas I'll just start with that. Any ideas are coming up of things that are, of events that you think that we should be asking the council, announce something, support something, financially support something, whatever. I think, everything's on the table. I don't think anything's off the table for ideas.
I missed the last meeting. Is there any proclamations that are already in the works of,
Not that I know of.
a big one that stands out in my world is that Ramadan is coming up. It's starting in about a week. It's lasting a month. One of the biggest ways to really affect a meaningful change or a meaningful proclamation is to actually sponsor an iftar. So an iftar is the meal that you eat after the sun goes down. Everybody is fasting all day, and being able to provide that meal to a large group of people that have not eaten all day is one of the most meaningful already, but really meaningful things that can be done from anyone within the organization or outside of it. So proclaiming, we see this as a holy month, because a lot of times people treat Ramadan as a celebration, and that is actually not what it is, but seeing it as a time for people of this faith to really nurture themselves and dig deeper into that faith, and showing respect for that process as it happens pretty widely within our city. We have a well-attended mosque here. Being able to step in and be a part of it in that way, I think is really, could mean a lot to a lot of people.
I guess I'll just throw a question out there. What could support look like?
Sponsoring meals.
Before, that would be you. Here, or?
They typically do a meal every night. So, people will connect with the mosque if they want to be that person to sponsor it for that night. But typically it's just volunteers, most of the time, people that already are going to the mosque that want to claim those extra blessings, and be able to feed all those people. So they have a calendar set up, and they'll say, somebody usually comes in and says, I'll take everything that's not taken. And so it kind of like reverse fills in.
So would that look like the city money or time, or what?
However the city would decide to do it, whether they actually come with the food, or they cater the food, or make the food. I think that it could be anything that they would like it to be. Just the information that comes to the mosque is mostly these are dietary parameters, and this is about how many people we typically have every night for iftar. Coming together for that breaking of the fast is one of the most looked forward parts of Ramadan, is that fellowship and that community building, and people being able to reconnect more so internally and less away from all of the kind of distractions of the world. So it tends to be a time people will also stay in the mosque, especially in the last 10 days, they'll actually just live there, to be able to completely come away from all of the outside distractions. But most of the time, every night after you've broken your fast, there are nighttime prayers where they break up the holy book into 29 different pieces, and for every night they recite that one section of it inside of prayer. So there's a lot of people that are there at night, and sometimes in need of a second dinner or like a snack or something. So in all honesty, any variety of food sponsorship is accepted and appreciated.
The city will have to sign up for a day or for a meal.
Yeah, so that you're not doubling up if somebody else has already signed up for that day. Or a donation. I don't really know, just we're throwing ideas out there, so I thought that would be a good one. And if we're doing a proclamation, I think this is one of the ways that we can actually put some meaning behind it.
I guess what I'm thinking in my head is, what, in your, or anybody's opinion, or mindset, what do you think we should ask the city to do? Yeah, could ask them anything, which we can. Say no, but we can, or they may say, but we can ask. If we wanted to, what would that question look like? Would it What would that question look like? Anybody? I mean, based upon how she's, describing this.
Yeah, no, that's where I was going to by asking, is the first step signing up? And if that's the first step, then we probably need to reach out to the city and see if that's something that can be done and who does that and all of that. And then once we sign up, then what's the next step, which is either a donation or catered meal. So how does that process happen?
Where is this held?
In the mosque.
Okay. And who could we contact?
The board of directors, the mosque imam, they have a website, and within that website as well. If all of those fail, then I could probably personally reach out to someone. But it is more meaningful not coming from me.
Right. Sure. Mm-hmm. Tell you what I'll do. Friday, because I got Friday off, because I'm leaving town. I don't know what time I'm leaving town. That's up to my wife. But I know Friday morning I'm probably free. Maybe I can go by there and get some information. I know the special meeting is tomorrow, but, maybe you can bring up, maybe you can bring up this idea, and we're getting information, that we can move forward, okay? Find out what we can do and what we might want to be able to do and things like that, and then we can get that information out, because obviously we don't want to wait till April 18th, to say we're going to do something. This is an action now, and if it's going to be a proclamation, and what does that look like, et cetera, et cetera. And so I'll do that Friday, okay? I got time for that.
Can I ask a question to the group? So given the time, so I looked, the Ramadan starts next Wednesday.
Approximately. Goes by off the lunar cycle. So the new moon has to be sighted somewhere in North America by 2 different people. And then once those are reported, it's accepted that the new month has started, and then the next day. So our days start at sunset. So the days continue the next morning right before the sun rises. That's the first fast.
So I guess with that, time is to Chair Page's comment is kind of the essence. If we were to do a proclamation, would it feel better to ask about a proclamation and start that conversation tomorrow, knowing that we have a meeting on Monday, we could vote on that and perhaps make that proclamation without having other pieces in place? Or would it be better to wait until those pieces are in place but not have a proclamation done until after Ramadan has already started? I guess, does it matter that if the proclamation happens prior to Ramadan beginning, or does that feel like something that we would want to wait until we figure out some of those?
I mean, I feel like there's pros and cons to both, but I think that if you are wanting this to be meaningful to more people, showing up with action items in hand, food or whatever, right? And the mosque to be able to say, this night's iftar has been sponsored by the city, who either they've proclaimed or in the process of creating a proclamation. I don't think that piece is going to make as much of a difference as them being able to say, here is how they're showing up to recognize that you're here and appreciated and, respect. Answer your question. I'm sorry, it goes kind of backwards, but.
I mean, let me just make sure that I'm hearing what you're saying. So with that, the ask of me would be to go tomorrow night and just, I think, kind of preview what the commission is working on, with the understanding that there will be a circling back that will be an ask.
Yeah, no, I do think that there's weight behind having that stated and said before the month actually starts.
Okay. The proclamation itself? Sure. Okay, so then we would want to ideally move that forward?
Yes. Okay. And then be able to align things.
Okay, so the ask, so it's the preview of the full picture, but then an ask of a proclamation, ideally to come Monday before Ramadan begins.
Now, I've got a calendar here, I don't know how accurate it is, but it says March 22nd, Ramadan begins. That sound about right?
There is two different schools of thought. Some people will take scientific measurement and go with it, and some people use the traditional method of actually waiting to the moon, which is why in some years you'll find that different people are celebrating the holiday afterwards on different days, even within a community. It's
Okay. Great,
that's been known for years and years and years.
thank you. Thank you for that. We got some work to do. Yeah.
Anything more on that?
Any other things coming up? And again, if you don't have your, calendar, again, we're not looking to do everything that's on the calendar, but things that we think is worthy of bringing up, you know.
I have a
and
suggestion.
Okay.
So I'm just kind of directly stealing this idea, but I know that the price point for sponsoring the Step Up conference is pretty low. I wonder if, since we now have a budget, if that is something that we could do potentially this year. And I was just looking at previous sponsors, and I know that Snohomish County is sponsored, so it wouldn't be kind of out of the blue for a city to sponsor.
So sponsorship of Step Up, I noticed, I think on the website, it asks us for, you know, you have opportunity to be sponsors. And I know the city is registering anybody that wants to go. I know that, you know, that email came out today from Andrew. There's a couple of people that's going to be going. Janella and Christy are registered to go myself. It's April 28th, but I believe on the website, I can go back and look at it, there is opportunity for sponsorship, so we can take a look, you know, take a look at it and
Yeah, I know that there are opportunities for sponsorship because my work is looking at it. And I believe the price point to be a named sponsor is somewhere around like the $500 mark. So it's not a ton of money. It could be a really good opportunity.
well, I guess the thing that just popped in my head, and I'm wondering if it's popping in anybody else's, do we want to, as a group, be a sponsor from our budget?
I think that's
That's what she's
And
asking,
she was talking about the city itself.
that we have a budget.
I kind of was thinking of it both ways. I don't know, because I mean, it would be city funds, but it would be from our budget is what I was assuming. We could see about either way. But I kind of like the idea of it being our group because then we might get more people kind of checking out what we're doing and more people interested in getting involved.
Can we ask that question tomorrow? What time's it?
I mean, I don't know if that's a question. I mean, I think if it is a question of can you use your budget for this, I think that is a city question, and then it is a commission.
Right.
If you have, I can't really go. So, I think it is, do you have latitude to make that decision, and then if you do, is that what the council, or what the commission wants to do with those funds?
Well, let's put that out there. What is the group conscience? What do you want to do? Because I think that City of Mountlake Terrace sponsors Step Up is different than City of Mountlake Terrace DEI Commission sponsors. I think those are two different things, right? So, what do you want to do?
Is our overall budget?
I think
If it's $800, then I'm gonna go with no, I'll pass.
it's a fair question.
You know,
I want to say it was a good chunk of change.
yeah, there's enough change in there for this, I think. You know,
That was one of the numbers that was going around. I don't know what the final.
I think the amount, and this is I think the amount is, like Andrew said when we said, more than what we think it is, you know, because it's not concrete, you know, so there's a pot.
We end up with the pot, so I think
It's
it's
in the pot.
$30,000 across the commission.
Okay, so,
All of them.
yeah, you know, and the idea is that, you know, like one group isn't gonna use it all, or one group isn't gonna say, you can't have that because, but, you know, but,
What if, I have a
well,
suggestion.
you gotta realize this is new territory for the city, okay? And ultimately, I don't think the position has been created yet, because there is supposed to be somebody who coordinates activities, right?
There will be an event
And that
person,
person,
this is a little bit
it doesn't
different. but-
exist yet, you know? Which is why Andrew told us, in the meantime, you know, if you need something, you ask the city, period, you know? And I think that's where we are, you know? So I don't think we need to get hung up too much on the amount of what we have, because it's out there, okay? And I don't wanna confuse anybody, which I know I am, but it's just not a concrete number, which is not a bad thing.
Can I suggest that we ask for the city to sponsor it, and then if that doesn't pan out, then we could look at having our commission sponsor it as kind of a plan B?
What do y'all think?
Is the amount, around $500? Is that the sponsorship amount?
I gotta look at the webpage, you know, I'm
It's
sure
not
there's
listed on-
various amounts.
The amounts aren't listed on the webpage. I just know this secondhand, because my employer is looking at possibly sponsoring as well.
I think we'll have to know what those numbers are, at least what the sponsorship amount is, so we can put it to.
Wanna volunteer to make a phone call? Anybody wanna volunteer?
April, we can't vote on it because it's gonna be, I can't download it on my phone. The budget is on the website because it's a city government thing.
There is budget.
There is budget, but what I'm saying, that's not gonna give you the answer. It's not gonna give you the answer, because, huh?
Yes.
It's not gonna give you the answer, because it's a pool of money, you know? So it doesn't specifically says, you know, DEIC has $1.44. Doesn't say that, okay? Doesn't say that.
No, it's not that, it's what's the sponsorship amount? So if we do say, yes, we'll sponsor, are we saying we'll give $500, or we are saying we'll give?
When I thought I saw there were levels of sponsorship. Okay, you know, but
I don't know, I'm just throwing this out there, but we would like to sponsor something up to a certain amount, and then if there is nothing below that amount, then okay, we're out. Right, like, but we don't wanna do that, right, or whatever it is.
anybody wanna throw out a number here?
It's hard to say without knowing what we're playing with.
What if we
It's not that,
say,
we did the same thing with the Juneteenth, you know, last year, you know, we said, DEIC City, can you give us $500 so that we can sponsor this, and boom, it was done, you know, it was a done deal. You know, when we're talking less than $2,500, you know, it's really the city, correct me if I'm wrong, you know, but when you're talking less than $2,500, it's really not a big deal. You know? I mean, if we wanna say $500, then we say $500, you know?
I'm comfortable with 500. Yep.
I think that's fair. Okay.
Okay.
Well, and to your point, then that, it may be just an Andrew question versus a
Right,
council question, right?
Right. It is, I mean, it's not a council question at all, you know, it's not a council question at all. Okay, so do we want to put a motion on the floor about the amount that we want to consider sponsorship for?
can I just suggest we make it a little bit like Price is Right style, like $501 or something? Because what if it's exactly 500 or, you know, something like that?
Okay, how about we do this? Can I get a volunteer to make a phone call tomorrow to see if they can reach somebody and find out what the sponsorship levels are?
If we do that, we can't pass a motion tonight.
Right, I understand that, you know.
Can we recommend Can we recommend to the city council that they do this, or can we recommend that Andrew follows up on this? Because I don't feel like that's something that I can reasonably do without having the power to make that decision. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know the budget. I don't
The
know.
amount that we're talking about, that I suggest that we're talking about, the city council does not get involved in.
Okay.
I have a question. So if we can't approve or have a vote today, can we have a vote via email, like tomorrow? Is that like, I think this is for the city.
I would, my guess is no, because it has to be part of an open meeting.
Right.
Okay.
How about we just say like up to 500, because I'm pretty sure that, because it's still leadership, right? So I'm pretty sure they would say, you know, our first tier isn't this, but we'll take your 500,
Right,
yeah.
right? Like, they're not gonna say like, no, we
Yeah,
don't want it. So let's say
exactly.
up to 500.
Right, I think we,
Up to and including. So if it is 500, that still counts.
right. Exactly, I think we're deep diving this too much, you know?
Okay. I like that plan.
Okay.
Okay, so I motion that we sponsor Step Up to and including $500.
Second.
Okay. The motion is second, all in favor? Aye, Hannah can raise her hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Any objections? So be it.
Okay, next question then, who follows up on that? I mean, I can send an email. There doesn't seem to be a phone number listed or anything, but I feel like I would just be kind of linking to somebody else's email because I don't know how to actually do that.
Okay, because I think, I know that before they opened it up for tickets, I saw requests for speakers, and I'm pretty sure I saw requests for sponsors, you know? Okay.
Okay, sorry, I
Other
couldn't
things
quite
under
hear.
the proclamation-
Did I hear somebody volunteered or am I in charge? I just want to make sure.
Carissa,
Oh, okay,
Carissa's gonna do it,
thank you.
okay? As soon as you know, just let Bernadette know, and then we'll know where we are. And if need be, you know, we can approach Andrew, I can approach Andrew, you know. Hey, give it up. Alrighty,
All right, trespass ordinance, I think,
I can give you an update on the trespass ordinance. I was supposed to meet with Hillary, Evans, the attorney, and Chief Call 2 weeks ago, but then my job hours got changed suddenly, so we couldn't meet. She was sick all last week. We are going to Zoom like at 9:45 on Monday, you know, between 9:45 or till it's 1 o'clock. Obviously, it ain't gonna be that long, hopefully. But, so that's what's happening on Monday. If you are available, you know, I forwarded you, I know.
I was about to respond to your email. That is the one time that day that I'm not available.
Really? And I think she had like 9 o'clock on Tuesday, but I know I'm not available till after 9:30, you know, so, and they said that would only be 45 minutes max that they would have for time. I think I forwarded you all that information too, so, I don't know if you're available. Okay, all right.
Saw your email come through, but I haven't read it.
Okay, so that's what's going on with the trespass ordinance. You know, we would have met 2 weeks ago, but I had to change the schedule. Okay?
all right. We'll hear about it next month. Safe space letter, I think we discussed this last month. We finalized it.
Right.
We finalized it. And these are the final versions. I don't know if, Hannah, I think you have an online version.
Yep. Yeah, the one thing on here that I have no idea what it's trying to say is that paragraph that starts BIPOC throughout the history of our nation one. Nation or that was the correction that I wasn't. I don't know what that was trying to say. I was asking for, you know, just to get it cleaned up.
I think we were talking about taking that part out. I'm having a hard time remembering, and I don't have my copy.
Well, I mean, I think this sounds fine, I just don't know what this says. Because it says BIPOC throughout the history of our NATIORG1.
I think Jennifer corrected it. So it reads as BIPOC throughout the history of our nation. Hope that this pledge counteracts instances of.
Right. Yeah, all right. So, the conversation today was going to be ideas on how we roll this out. Anybody have any thoughts on that?
Sorry, I wasn't here last month, so what are we discussing?
How we roll this out, because we voted to accept this.
I think that this would be a good one to ask, oh gosh, I'm blanking on the exact terminology, the person that was doing, I think the communications, because wouldn't that be a good idea to talk to like a communications person on like how to get this out to different business owners and managers?
Okay.
I think that'd be a good start, to have that communication go out to whoever owns a business in Mountlake Terrace. If you're interested in, we would like to connect with you and deliver a sign, sticker, whatever, that you can post in your business. And then from there, we start either mailing out or physically deliver these to different businesses.
Now, I was thinking long and hard about this, and what came to my mind was, I remember just before I left New Hampshire, I was in the Rotary, and we had talked about diversifying the Rotary in the city that I was in. I was the lone black male. There was a black woman, and there was a Hispanic woman, and everybody else was either white males or females out of a group of like 60. And we talked about, well, how do you change this thing? And I brought up the question, well, how many of you go to this restaurant, that restaurant, this type of food, that you're regular at, that you know the owner? Because everybody in there were business owners in the Rotary, or either business owners or directors of companies and stuff like. So I was like, don't you have these favorite people that at least once a week or twice a month you do things with? Have you ever thought to invite them to a Rotary meeting? Because they ain't here. And so I was thinking the same thing. A lot of you have been here for quite a while. Maybe you have some restaurants or some businesses, some stores that they know you, you know them. That might be a good starting point anyway, to your point of going to, instead of cold calling, start in a safe space, someplace that knows you, or that you're comfortable with, or they see you, they recognize you. That way you can feel comfortable explaining to them why you want to do what you want to do. And once you get a few, things in hand, then, we can do all these other things too, but it gives you an opportunity to at least have a starting point, those places where you're comfortable with, Ideas, thoughts?
The Mountlake Terrace and Briar Business Association, Chamber of Commerce, yes. It used to be MLTBA, and it's not anymore. There's an extra B and it's a different color. But they're having a meeting.
It was last night. I was just looking it up,
Yeah.
because I thought the same thing.
Yeah. But next month.
Okay.
They're starting to meet more regularly, and I will say that kind of their organizing team, including their new president, Justin, who works over at Double D Meats, I think would probably be very receptive to having some conversation. So that might be a really good connection point. And I have his info if that is helpful.
All right, I'll reach out to you. Okay.
Yeah, but they would be a good, I mean, they're in kind of startup mode, so they don't have a huge, to draw on.
Right, yeah, because
and-
we've been trying to connect with, and it's like non-existent, so.
So they're regrounding, we've invested some money in
Okay.
kind of supporting them,
Okay.
so, yeah,
Okay.
I think that would be a good partnership to
Okay.
explore.
One of the things that when Hannah first came up with this, I felt, that's just me, I felt like there's one organization that I think should be the first to sign this. That's, I think, the city of Mountlake Terrace. And whatever it is that we're gonna ask people to post, the city of Mountlake Terrace should be the first. So My thought.
We have some sort of process in place of this renewals or creations, I imagine. And so keeping a stash of these on hand, just, you know, in a little box container that somebody could grab. And maybe it doesn't have to be so orchestrated. Maybe it's just somebody happens to come by the city hall, sees it, reads it, says this is something I want to do, and then quietly places it on their business. So having it available in those kind of subtle ways as well.
Sure.
I think that's kind of what we were talking about at our last meeting, because we were talking about the whole signature, like having people sign things and then like who keeps the
Right, yeah.
signatures and all that stuff.
Right.
So I think if we do something like that, where it's just like even a sign, like if you take one of these stickers, here's what you're saying you support. Yeah.
Okay.
I like that.
Are we still headed in the direction of some type of sticker for the windows? This on there or no?
I believe
I like
so.
stickers.
Sorry?
Stickers are just so accessible and familiar, and you don't have to worry about hanging something and framing it and like making a hole in a wall in potentially a rented space. The other option beyond just a sticker would be like, I don't know the exact terminology again, like a vinyl window cling, so it's removable. I don't know like price point differences there though.
I guess that's what I was thinking of when I thought of stickers. Yeah. Not like one of those that you have to scrape off with like,
Yeah.
Like those stickers I gave you, like those labels I gave you, the DEI labels, you know, you can just, yeah. Mhm. Would it be the whole thing?
I'm not envisioning
Okay. Okay.
something that
And-
is then,
sorry.
no, it's just that then.
I'm so sorry, I can't hear what you're saying.
I was saying, instead of like actually posting the words themselves, the businesses, they would be posting an image of something that hopefully people will then correlate the two of like, this image equals this sentiment.
We're also a big fan of QR codes around here, so we could always QR code
Sticker.
on the sticker
Good idea.
back.
There you
If
go.
you'd like to know more about what this means, QR code, and it takes you to the pledge.
What if we used our logo on this and a QR code?
In the light, I was just getting ready to say that.
Oh.
What if it's our
Sorry to steal
logo? What if it's our logo? And the QR code brings it,
Original idea.
QR code and that's
Yeah.
where you just.
Invitations to our ribbon cutting.
yes.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
I mean, we haven't had a lot of them,
We
but
got a
they're starting to
couple
like pick back up, so I will
Yeah.
just, that might be
Yeah, I
another
got that,
opportunity
yeah, I
to
got that on
connect with
there,
local
yeah,
businesses.
okay,
We've got a
okay.
couple coming up,
yeah.
so.
All right. Any more comment on the safe space letter? I think, we have to start doing some, connect about Justin for the Chamber of Commerce. And, at the same time, we need to start thinking about, looking to, and I'll get with the city on that, the vendor that does labels. You know, I mean, push come to shove, I guess I can get the, same thing, where we got the original DEI labels from, but I'll find out who their vendor is.
Did we connect with Ricky again?
Yeah, I probably should, 'cause that's the communications person, yeah, okay. I'm gonna make an appointment with her then. All right, let's keep moving on. Any other comments on any of this?
Welcome signage,
An update on that. The, MLT Police is, Joey is going to, she is getting prices. They're going to be the first. They've agreed to, right outside the door, before you walk into the building, right above the light, that light where the two double doors are, they're going to put, well, you know, because they're getting with the vendor, but they're going to, I had passed them around before. Okay, they got the gray one, okay? I don't know if you can see it. Yeah, but, y'all can see copies of it, but that's the one that they're getting, they're either gonna get, he sent me an email yesterday, they're either getting a banner or a sign, whichever looks best, but that's the one they're gonna get, okay? And then, you know, the idea is to get the city to do the same thing, and then let it grow from there. You know, you see it, if you see a place you think it should be, let's find out who is running it. You know, I've been meaning to get over to the pavilion, talk to the director over there, you know, to see, because not every shoe is going to fit on the same foot. You know, so it doesn't necessarily have to be the same welcome sign. We should not be focused on just, because they all got different languages on them, just what's going to look best. Because I showed them the whole list of things, and they were like, no, like that one. So let them pick. You know, I don't think our goal is to tell people what sign to put on their walls, to give them the idea, say, hey, don't you think that this would be a good idea, you know?
Jeff Betts is on board with doing that at the pavilion.
Have them pick one.
Okay.
Okay? And I'll tell you what Chief said. He said, this cost is minimal, so the city is not an issue in terms of cost, because we're talking about banners, you know, so it's not, well, is the DEI gonna pay for it? You know, no, we're not, you know, it's the idea of, okay, you're adding something to your property, if you will, if I can say it that way, right? All right, next.
Land acknowledgement, I think previously we discussed about the council, or a discussion with the council about land acknowledgement. I think we put it on hold, if I remember correctly, or I don't remember, to be honest.
Yeah, so here's what I recall about my takeaways, and folks can correct me or add to them. So I think when we talked about it in January, when I was here last, there was alignment from the commission that there was a desire to move forward with that. I think there were some questions around, so it's been shared with the council that there's been discussion at the commission about land acknowledgements and us potentially looking at doing one. There was not familiarity across the board with what a land acknowledgement even was across the council. So I think we talked about the idea that maybe some kind of education would potentially be a good grounding point. I think the commission really kind of having a defined why, behind the land acknowledgement would be helpful as it gets to a place where there's some sort of like resolution in front of us to potentially consider. What else? I think maybe suggested language would be helpful, because I think as we talked a little bit about at that meeting, there's lots of different land acknowledgements out there. And so one thing I will say between that meeting and this meeting, I spent a little time trying to think about how could we help the council kind of better understand this process, what could that process look like. And I stumbled onto the Burke Museum's they really kind of thoughtfully walked through how they went about why they do a land acknowledgement, how they thought about the conversations that they had with various tribes and trying to be intentional about just the work that they were doing. And so I don't know, that I feel like that could maybe serve as a framework that might be helpful. And I think, at least my perspective, and I think there's different ways to do this, but so usually when something like this comes before us, there's some sort of memo or resolution, and I think maybe the city could help with some of that. And I think the commission would need to decide what's going to be in, what is the ask of the council? And so I think that is where, at least I think things landed, and I don't think we got past that. I think it was, so there's some, I think, pieces that I think presented in a way that would be informative and help the council understand what the ask is and take forward, that there might be helpful from the commission.
Comments?
I guess, what's the next steps? Do we want to bring this up in our next meeting, spend a chunk of time discussing this, or do we want to do this discussion, research, coming up with something between now and whenever we meet next, and exchange emails, and then come prepared to our next meeting with some content that we can share?
Yeah, thanks.
So I hear what you're saying as far as having some education around it would be good. How and what context is that delivered in? Is this like a, hey, we'd like you to do this, here's your education, or here's your education, and then we're like...
I think it could, yeah, I think it could look at lots of different ways. So normally when any issue comes before us, it gets added to an agenda, and then there are materials around that item. So usually there's background material, like helping us to understand what is the topic, like what are the, what's the reason it's before us, like what are we considering, if staff has kind of perspectives on, recommended path forward, concerns, those sorts of things. They're all kind of laid out, and then it's our job to go through all of those materials, do the learning, and then be prepared to have the discussion, and vote on it at a meeting. So, and this is new for us, so I don't think that has to necessarily be the process, and I think if it feels like it's hard to get to a place where maybe some of those are answered, one of the reasons I was kind of looking into, courses of action is I was like, well, maybe with this consultant that is coming on, like, maybe this is one of the bodies of work that we engage with them on is, like, the commission knows we want to do this, like, how do we get the, things in place to help the council, understand what the ask is and move that forward. I think that could also be potentially a way to look at it, if it feels like there's a lot of steps there that don't feel maybe.
Is it appropriate for those steps to look like we are asking council to partner and meet with one, if not more, of our local tribes and
I think we can
gain that education in that manner? Something that would be kind of got at by city council.
Are you saying, like, going to the council and saying, DEIC would like to do a land acknowledgement, to get to a place where we're ready to have that conversation, we want you to identify, reach out, schedule, and meet with a member of a local tribe to understand what land acknowledgements are? I guess
I'm confused. Was this not a land acknowledgement for city council? It was the beginning of their meeting.
Yes. Oh, I think that is the ask.
Yeah, that's what we're asking them to do.
Similar to what we do.
Right.
The request
Yes.
was, can the council do it? And if not, why not? Like, I think that was kind of the...
Can the council do it? Sure. I mean, I will say, I think if the DEIC is trying to make a compelling,
Right.
case for why this is something that the council should consider moving forward with, I think the best way to do that would be to answer some of those questions put forward. You don't have to, I mean, I could go to the council tomorrow and say, the DEIC would like us to do a land acknowledgement, can we vote on that, please, on Monday? And we could do that. I think without those questions answered, I think it is much harder to get to a place of forward successfully. And that doesn't mean we can't have that conversation.
I think what we can,
And if we are asking the council to do something, to give the reason why we are asking.
and one way I think we can help ourselves is, there are a lot of councils, in Snohomish County that are doing it. We can always ask them, we can start with, why are you doing it? Just reach out to them. We can take one, reach out to them. Why, even in King County, I know, the mayor, we was on a call the other day with the mayor of Shoreline. He says in their meetings, and as soon as he said it, I wrote down on a piece of paper, ask him why. Why did they decide to do that? Because he brought it up, So, you know, we can get some background information as to why councils actually do it. You know, Steve Woodard sent me an email. He tried to connect me with an individual who's a Native American who speaks to why folks do land acknowledgements. You know, they don't have to go out and find him. We can bring him to them, you know, and let him speak as to why, you know, land acknowledgements, you know, are done or whatever. And so, I mean, those are some of the things I think that we can do, and to get some of that research done. And but, you know, I think that first, you know, just if we all just council, you know, and say, you know, tell our council, yeah, here are 7 councils that do it, and this is why they do it, you know, and why we think you should do it. And then, and here's the background behind it. We got this individual that can speak to why it's important to them. Doesn't matter if it's important to us, why it's important to them, you know, and why it should be important to you.
So I sent to Bernadette, and she forwarded it to all of our commissioners on January 20th, the sample land acknowledgement and information and history behind it that I had brought to our December meeting previously. So we have some of that information already shared out with our council, commission. So maybe we could look at that and make a presentation. I'd also be happy to reach out to the Edmonds School District Indian Education Chair. She's been involved in putting events on and helping the district do land acknowledgements across the area as well. And she's a member of the tribe as well.
When can you?
I can do that next week. I sent the thing out in so that's already been sent out to everybody. There's a little slide with information on it. So why?
Let's revisit that, folks. Y'all got it, and you can let them know it's coming down the pike, and then, you know, maybe.
And they do know. I mean, it's just.
Yeah, and where we are, and what we're doing, and so that we can probably plan, you know, next month, you know, in coordination with our meeting right thereafter, be prepared to attend the meeting for the council to present it in April.
And that it's more important to answer the how before the, answer the why before the how.
Absolutely.
I'm sure that I totally understand the question.
So, part of what I heard when you were kind of recounting was that a lot of or not a lot, but at least some of the council members were even just confused as to what is a land acknowledgement, right? And that would be, how do we answer why we're asking to do it if there are members of the council who don't even understand what it is? So what's more important, the education what it is, and then answering why or why not it should be done, or should it be a why or why not it should be done, and then the education comes in on what it looks like and how it's done?
I mean, I think does it have to be either or? Can it be both? I mean, I think ideally it would come to us kind of, and I don't think it has to be like a huge learning undertaking, but I think some general, a link to an article that resonates with the commission around, that there's alignment and that is aligned with kind of like, this feels like a good explanation of what land acknowledgements are and why many organizations do. This is our why as a commission. This is why we think it's important for us to do here in Mountlake Terrace. And then I think to William's point, I think calling attention to, here's some of the other organizations that are doing it. Here's maybe a couple of examples of what those land acknowledgements look like. And I think particularly if you have strong feelings about what our land acknowledgement should or shouldn't look very different, right? And can look very different. So I think those are important things if you like to help shape that conversation and what ultimately that land acknowledgement could look like. Does that make sense?
Yes. So moving forward from that, would the city council vote to say, yes, we'll do one, and then vote for which one will be used, or is that also supposed to be a package deal?
I mean, I think it's helpful to see those all together, that all at once. I don't think it has to be. I mean, I think we could, but if that feels not the best course of action from the commission's perspective, I don't think that has to be. Ask us to, set the why and have us vote yes or no on a land acknowledgement and then craft it. I mean, that could be the case. So I don't, it could be, there's not a one way. One vote is easier than two?
Sure,
Yeah.
but then the work that goes behind, right, so if the work that's put in for the why and the how is presented all at once, and the why is, in whatever situation said no to, then all of that extra work behind the how is then also unnecessary and done for no reason, so, yeah.
I think in that case, you would just want examples, right, so that at least there's an understanding of what we're moving towards with. And anything else that would be helpful?
Tell them it'd be helpful for them to look up what a land acknowledgement is on Google.
So, here said that Snoqualmie Tribe has some land acknowledgement resources, and, Tulalip Tribe does as well, which I believe we're part of the two. Kind of like in that in-between.
We are in that in-between, which is interesting, right?
There's no to either one, and they have, the land acknowledgements that they say, like, we would like to use this.
And I
So
think that's a good, I will put that, I mean, I think those are one of the questions that we're gonna have to answer if we're doing a land acknowledgement, like whose land are we acknowledging? And those are complex, to your point. Some of those questions are not clear, like necessarily one answer, and so I think those are gonna be the sort of things
Okay.
we're just gonna have to make decisions on.
All right. We'll iron it out.
Yeah.
Okay, let's start with this information but let's not wait till the end of the year to get it done. Let's stick to a time plan and.
We are in March.
Huh?
We are in March.
Doesn't mean nothing, man. Let's get it done.
All right, no other, okay. New business, stipend reimbursement. Again, I wasn't here last month, so I think there was some discussion.
I think that we cited that, I know there's one group in the state that's using it, and kind of left it with it, kind of see how that's going, but we really didn't shore up anything as far as like where we wanted to go with it, or what we wanted to do with it, or how we wanted to do whatever. Correct me, those who were there, if I'm wrong, but I don't know that, cited to, we didn't make any decisions on to.
No, I feel like it came up at the end,
Yeah.
and we were pretty much done at that point, so, tabled it for next time.
Yeah, we said further discussion will be continued. That's pretty much it. I don't know how to, I think that, one of the things that I remember saying is that, I would like us to have a full conversation about it with all of us here, so that we can, get down to the nuts and bolts as to how people feel, why they feel, what they feel, et cetera. Instead of just like, not everybody here. You know what I mean? I think this, that was my feeling. Okay, so.
I think it'll also be helpful to kind of, for me to understand what does this mean? Like, are we talking about an ongoing reimbursement? Are we talking about like a one-time, one-off situation? Like, what's on the table.
I feel like the term stipend reimbursement is maybe a little bit
I think it's an oxymoron.
in my head.
Yeah. A reimbursement means that you've already paid something and you're being returned money for it versus a stipend, which means that you are being valued with your time financially.
Yeah.
So you're getting it on the front end or you're getting it on the back end, but they're two different terms.
So-
Which one of those terms
so
is
the
relevant here?
So the purpose was, I believe, more for, on the stipend end of it, right? So essentially, we are saying, like, if you are part of this commission and you are, let's say, you're paid, you know, $80 a meeting or whatever, right? We're just essentially saying, I think that this means that we value you and we value your time, and we know that it's not, for a lot of people, it's not free, right, to be here, right? A lot of us are sacrificing other things or paying for childcare, or maybe it's gas to drive here, whatever it might be, right? We're saying that we value the time that you're putting in to sit in. That's, I believe, what the stipend is for. Yes, it is still volunteer, right? Like, because you're choosing to sit here, but it's just valuing the time.
I would add to that it helps remove barriers for some people who would like to be in these chairs, who have a voice that needs to be heard and financially are not able to commit to it. It removes that from those voices also getting a chance to be here. And I personally think that, you know, if there are people who, you know, pride themselves on this being a volunteer position, that maybe it becomes something where a stipend is offered, and any commissioner that feels like that's not something that's necessary for them to be able to sit in this chair, they're able to check a box that says, you know, thank you, but no thank you. So no harm is done in those cases, but the people who would rely on that stipend to be able to be here know that they have that as a possibility.
We still have Hannah?
Is there?
Oh,
Yes, she did. Okay. Any other thoughts?
do you have any thoughts, Hannah?
Not on this one.
So, how do you want to proceed?
Are there people here who feel strongly that a stipend is not something that we should move forward with?
Y'all know my feelings.
I
I'm not
support
in
it.
agreement with the stipend. I'm sorry?
I do support it, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
I think the next step would then be to make a motion that we offer a stipend to our commissioners with the availability to refuse the stipend if they feel fit, and then wherever the gap is between accessing our budget and determining what it is, and actually making that a reality would be the step after that. I motion that we offer a stipend to our commissioners with the possibility for refusal as well for meetings attended and work done to be a part of this commission.
Are there any questions? Do we need to, I'm sorry.
We need an amount,
Okay.
don't we?
Are there any, okay, we got a second. Any questions? Like, I got a question. And I don't know if there's a point of order, if, I guess this would be a test as to what our budget availability actually is. I think Steve Wood alluded to that his last meeting. I don't know if this is something that is gonna wind up in front of the council or wind up in front of the city manager. But if we're prepared to vote on it, then I think we might need to be prepared to have to hear that information afterwards. I don't know. I mean, because we don't know what, like I said, I think Steve said, well, you got a budget to figure out what you can use it for. I think it was a quote, when he was sitting at the end of the table there that day. So, that's the only point that I'm gonna put out there, is just that, I don't know, it's new territory, but that's cool. There's nothing wrong with new territory.
Well, I think
Okay.
doing this says that we're serious about taking this to the next step. We don't know exactly what that looks
Well, here's my question, y'all. So, would that stipend be different? Actually, we're not even talking about amount, but would there be another stipend for everything that you're doing with DEIC? For instance, we're meeting here today for 2 hours and some few minutes, but what about other things that you're doing for DEIC? All the research that we're talking about doing, or all the footwork that we're talking about doing, or things like that. Is that included in need for stipend?
I think that's part of what is decided to be looked at, right? I think that in my mind, this us voting and saying yes, we want to pursue this, which then opens the door for the exact how does this work, right? How exactly do we want to lay this out? So us saying we want to pursue it doesn't necessarily mean we know the answer to all the things. It just, in my mind, means that we're now open to this and we're walking through that door and figuring it out kind of as we go. This is kind of a new
Right,
right?
okay.
But I do think that this is a really good opportunity for the city or for us to put money where their mouth is, right? We say, we value the DEIC and the work that they do and whatnot, right? So if you value something in the capitalistic world that we live in right now, what do? You put your money behind it. And if the city is not willing to do that, then that also is what our values are. So this just opens the door for us to explore that.
Confirm, when you say the city is willing to put money behind it, the city will tell us to take it out from our budget. From us, right?
Essentially, so because, I don't know the rules, right? So there potentially could be a space where the city is we are going to pay our commissions, not from their budget, but from, I think there's different options. We don't know all the options yet.
Well, I think the question that I'm still having then is, so the motion that's on the floor is, I think it's stated, can you read that motion?
Offer stipend for commissioners. That's all I have.
Okay, you offer for stipends for commissioners who want them. However, but now we're also saying, but we don't know what those stipends are gonna be for. So is it gonna be for A, B, C, and D, or A, D, and B? So I think that if there's going to be a vote on a stipend, it should be worded in a way that is saying that we are going to offer, we have to know what it is that we're gonna have a stipend for. We're saying let's have a stipend and then later decide what the stipend's gonna be for. I think that, like I said before, is it gonna just be for the 2.5 hours or 2 hours that we meet, or when we walk into the Terrace, or when we have a booth, or when we, I think you gotta have parameters as to, or have an idea of what exactly, because all of those are the times that you're saying is so important, so does it mean that one piece of time is less important than the other piece of time? So I think I think that the motion as stated is asking for something that you don't know what you want it for. Just my opinion.
I move to amend the, motion to be that we pursue the stipend action and get more details to come to a vote with actual data. I amend our motion to move forward with pursuing a stipend.
I second that motion.
Right?
You have to discuss and vote on the amendment.
Right. Any discussion on the amendment?
Something sticks out to me, and it was something that you actually said, to Aaron earlier this meeting, is if the reasoning is that it's not really done anywhere else, then that's not really a good.
Yeah, and I don't have a problem with that. That's why I said good ideas. What did I just say? I said, new territory is good. That's not what I'm arguing against. I'm arguing against, you're saying that we want a stipend, and then we'll decide what the stipend's for. I'm saying that to the amendment, gotta decide, I think you should, well, this is what we think we should have a stipend for, because you're saying I want stipend for my time. Well, our time is supposed to be more than just this meeting. So I'm just, get some ideas of, it gotta be concrete, but I think that when do you ask for a stipend, when don't you ask for a stipend? When does someone say yeah, when does somebody say no? Or do we always say yeah if someone asks? That's all I'm saying is that, we're saying yes to a stipend, but what for the stipend?
Right, but we're talking about the amendment, which is to pursue a stipend program, and then come back with parameters of what that would look like to vote on further. That's the amendment.
So.
Is there discussion about that part?
Okay.
There's no discussion. It seems like the right way to move forward, because then it gives us some time to do a little bit of research or
But it also gives the authority for that research to be pursued. It's not just doing a bunch of work that nobody's gonna care about, 'cause we don't want to pursue it.
Motion and second. All in favor of the motion amendment as stated? Aye? Okay. Any nays? Be it.
Everyone said aye.
DEI suggestions.
Before we go there, what's the next step for this?
I think you should have a committee that is going to adjust, what do you think needs to be done?
I think Sabora and I are on a committee to, research further the stipend process and how we could implement that, and we'll come back with a presentation.
Committee.
Sabora and I will, do we need a third, or we good?
Does anyone want to be a third?
Oh, what?
Okay, third deal.
We've got our committee then.
That'll be, you'll be ready to report hopefully next meeting? Okay.
Now, DEI suggestions.
DEI suggestions.
At our last meeting, I had talked about, we had talked about the high schoolers at Mountlake Terrace coming up and asking us to be involved with, the Black Student Union, at Mountlake Terrace. And so I reached out to the high school, and I talked to some of the elementary schools in Mountlake Terrace, Cedar Way, Terrace Park, and Mountlake Terrace Elementary, about their cultural night. And coming off of COVID, none of the elementary schools are in a place where they can host one. None of them are planning it. They all remember it happening, but no one is in charge of it anymore. So I've reached out to the high school to see if they would be open to hosting one for our quadrant, which is the city of Mountlake Terrace, basically. Since the high school is the feeder for all of our local elementary schools. And I have a conversation with them scheduled for Friday.
The board, does the high school still have a DEI commission?
We have an equity team, yeah.
Yes.
An equity team?
Okay.
I wrote to 3 or 4 people, and
That's still Mara Vlasic, is that her name?
She is on maternity leave through the rest of the, school year, and will be returning in the fall, but there are other leaders within the equity team that are continuing those meetings.
Is that group meeting at all? When do they, can you find out when they meet? Maybe, it'd be nice if, we could have opportunity to just go in and, show up, some of us, I don't know what time they meet, to just.
Thursdays at 2. It used to be every other Thursday. I believe it still is, but I can verify that.
I mean, I don't know what everybody else thinks, but I know we kind of mentioned it last time, it'd be biggest time, you know, that, if they at least see something of the DEI commission. I mean, they've gotten a commission and their person came and spoke, so, and what would they like, you know, see happen in the city with the help of the DEI commission instead of us deciding what we want for the kids to have, you know, that sort of thing, you know what I mean?
Are we ready for another suggestion? I just want to make sure before I moved on.
I guess to build off of that, and I don't want to take away from the commission's conversation, I think one of the things that we've talked about at various points on the council, is, and one of the things candidly I would love to see us do is, to your point, build more youth engagement. One of the things we've done in the past, and what some cities do, is they have commissioners and or a youth commission in and of itself. I will say commission terms being July through June, it might be a good time if we think there is value to adding youth voices to either this commission and or commissions more broadly. I will name that is one of the ways we've talked about trying to give youth more opportunity to engage and provide input so that we are thinking about diversity in that perspective when we're making.
Kind of a bridge to what I was going to say, is that I've reached out to our ASB advisor and offered up an idea of our student government having a day with our city government. We are in the process of electing new officers for next school year, and I think it would be really valuable if there was some way that we could create a day where whoever is elected comes, spends time with city government, sees city workings, has that voice shared, perhaps gives them, you know, their moment to provide whatever ideas they have of how they would want these youth commissions or youth seats or whatever that framework is to look like. They get agency in building that pathway. So the ASB advisor is very excited. I did run it by Rory. He seems to be on board, and I think you are as well. I think our next step then is how do we connect?
That's a good question. I mean, I think we could add that to, I mean, if there's consensus among the commission, you know, we could add that to my share out when I give my liaison report. Monday is when we give our reports. And I think we need just to get, I think it's that there's a council action needed to go that board. I think it's just getting it organized.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then, if that's a yes, then I could potentially connect whoever that staff person who would do that organization with the ASB advisor, and then going from there. Okay.
So what you're talking about really is the school's governing group meeting with like the council group. Is that what you're talking about?
Not necessarily meeting, but just like having a day with them, seeing how.
I mean, like a day, so we're talking about the city council and the youth.
High school student government.
Okay.
Associated student body. So the student government is representative of the associated student body. They're elected by them to be their voices. And so there is something called, we call the Big Six, which is the 6 people who are elected to represent the entirety of the school, regardless of what grade they're in. And then each specific grade has their own president, vice president, treasurer, secretary, relations. There might be one more, but each level has their own, and then the entire school has one specific group for everybody.
And this group is not the equity group.
These are students.
No, but the equity group is students too, right? Really? Oh.
Have or want students part of it, but most schools
It is run, organized, and planned by the staff, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know, okay, I misunderstood that. Earlier, I thought that she had talked about students that had a group. Okay, all right, okay.
There is a social justice club, that is at the school, but, you know, they more so bring, awareness to different things and potentially might host events, but, they don't do a lot in terms of changes.
Whatnot,
Yeah, procedure, policy.
Yeah.
Got it.
Any other, thank you. Any other DEI suggestions?
DEI suggestions, I had a comment and then a suggestion. So as part of the city, sorry, I'm pointing to you, but the city manager interview process, I was a little disappointed to see among the questions, there was no DEI question.
I asked one.
Well, for the South, but for the community and for
okay.
the others, there
Sure.
wasn't. So I think my suggestion is for any city hirings, I think DEI question should be, at least there should be one, if not more. So that's a suggestion, but credit where it's due. After the first interview, I brought it up with whoever the facilitator was, and she was very open for me to add a question, and I had brought a question and I added it. Everyone was super happy that we added it. And so credit to them for, letting me add, but then I think, it should be by default question for any city-related hiring.
Any other DEI suggestions? Only one that I have is, Tour de Terrace is July 20th, 21st to 23rd, and should, not that far away, 4 months away, so, we need to start thinking, how as a commission, we're going to participate, the city's gonna want us to participate, we should wanna participate. We'll get a banner that actually has our logo on it.
Thank you.
We got another banner that already says diversity, equity, and inclusion, but, we'll get one with our banner on it, but just how, we can be a presence in that, or if we think coming up, so we need to be, I think, next month, be prepared to discuss. I've already been in touch with them and, the group that runs it, and, get back to me in terms of different things like the vendors, Heartful Roots, the group I had talked about, the minority group, that was at Sky Nursery, in terms of talk about how they can get some diversity vendors in there versus what they had last year, and just, so we'll start talking about that, but, any ideas that we think can help improve, Tour de Terrace from an equity, diversity, inclusion. I think let's be prepared to talk about that. Some of y'all that was the first one I've ever seen, and I was kind of stunned, like I think I told you, because everybody told me it's just completely non-diverse, activity, and, that first day when we were walking, I was like stunned with all the colors that I saw on the street, all the various nationalities and things that were attending and wherever they were coming from, but they were there. And so, now we can kind of like add to that with vendors and other things that was going on, and we can be a part of that, to make that more, inclusive, and make people want to come and be a part of that, instead of staying at home.
Probably not like necessarily a question. Anyone know how, or do they go about, like, advertising? By they, I mean whoever was on. Vendor at our fair, or do they rely on other people to find them?
I think it's mostly the latter, and I think there's a lot of reaching out to the folks that have already. So I think the impression is they would welcome also getting the word out around both and parade participation, and trying to, ensure that we There's no cost to participate in the parade, or at least there hasn't been in previous years. So I think a lot of it is just reaching groups.
We also have a website that has like something like sign up to be
Yeah, that's what I'm like, I don't
Yeah.
even.
They sent me a message. Hello, we are finalizing our vendor booth applications on our website as we speak. And, they got a info@tourdeterrace.org. So they're gonna reach out to me. I'm gonna reach out to them and tell us exactly, get all that information. But, info@tourdeterrace.org, right now is where some of that information is. But it's probably people who've done it before are the only ones that probably know what to do.
Like reaching out to those.
May I interject here and just add that Jeff Betts has asked, and he's the Parks and Rec Director, that our new city coordinator, Andrew Applewick, be added to the next DEIC meeting to introduce himself, to the commission and explain his role as it relates to the commission, since he's
Okay?
our event coordinator.
All right. Very good. We were talking about that earlier. Good. Any other DEI suggestions?
Right, there's nothing, any subcommittee updates, DEI wins? Any other comments?
Yes, I'd like to add also that as a reminder, Jennifer wants, the commission to be aware that reappointment forms are due by Friday, March 17th. So everybody go to the website and put your information in that, yes, I want to continue with the board.
So that's for commissioners whose terms are ending.
Yes.
I don't think I got one. I just started.
Right, you wouldn't get that.
Okay, there are some terms of expiration. I have Mohit, I'm sorry, your last name. Rahit. Your term ends June 30th, and Commissioner Dean, the 30th as well. Sam Doyle, the 30th as well, and Carissa Richards, 6:30 as well. And then, Chair Page, Francisco, Chair Meyer, Commissioner Meyer, all end in 2025, so you have a couple years to go. Please get those in so Jennifer will return from her clerk meeting happy.
17th. Friday.
This Friday, yes.
Damn. Okay. All right. Any DEI wins? Or Commissioner Corners? Anna, got anything?
All I know is it's past my bedtime.
Carissa?
There was something that I was gonna, maybe skip me for a second so I can find the email.
I mean, you've already mentioned a couple of things that you've already done, meeting with, that's what Commissioner's Corner is. What did you do since the last meeting? So you've mentioned a bunch of stuff that you talked about. Same with you, Renee. Anything else you want to add, Commissioner's Corner?
The PTA Council hosted a gun safety presentation. It is available on Facebook and our website about reducing gun violence. And I participated in the kindergarten fair for the Edmonds School District, and the PTA Council hosted comedy night down in Edmonds just last weekend. And then I've attended some local PTA groups and parent meetings lately. Meeting more of our community. I've been meeting more of our community.
And, me, I attended the clerks and clergy. About it. So, if there's anything else, can I get a motion to adjourn the meeting?
To adjourn the meeting?
Can I get a second? We can stay if you want. All right. All right. So be it. If you want any more of these brochures, because I can get a ton of them from Sergeant Porter if you want extras.
Got your name very largely on big screen. The Briar Terrace Middle School new parent night.
Oh,